several African leaders feeling you are speaking on sovereignty issues that America shouldn't be. And as a result, there are those who see the role of AFRICOM as less of a partner in, the war against, shared threats, as you mentioned, and more of a protector of Western or American economic interests that allows access to Africa's vast mineral resources. What would you respond to that?
I respond that there's others on the globe that do that.
AFRICOM, the U.S. military command responsible for Africa, officially says it works with African nations to promote peace, security, and respect for sovereignty. But a recent interview with its commander, General Michael Langley, reveals tensions between these goals and on-the-ground realities. Today, we'll analyze Langley's interview to see where AFRICOM's words match its mission and where they don't. Langley begins by discussing the annual Chiefs of Defense Forces conference held in Kenya.
U.S. AFRICOM, we yearly put on the Chief of Defense Conference to address issues, military issues, security issues, shared objectives of how to achieve security and stability across the continent. So that was a purpose. And now we're here in Kenya. And as I had discussions with the Chad, General Kariri, he says, yes, I would love to host this conference. So it's an ownership by the Chiefs of Defense across Africa.
Langley says the conference's purpose is to foster regional cooperation and strengthen security partnerships. He points out Kenya as a strategic location, citing its stability and infrastructure. But historically, AFRICOM's meetings in Africa have been criticized for sidelining African political sovereignty and primarily serving U.S. strategic interests. Kenya's role as a hub for AFRICOM operations, including the Camp Simba base, has drawn scrutiny from some African leaders who see these meetings less as partnerships and more as displays of American military influence. AFRICOM's official doctrine emphasizes partnership and respect for African sovereignty. Yet, critics argue these conferences often reinforce power imbalances, with U.S. agendas dominating the agenda. Ivana presses Langley on whether these conferences truly represent equal partnerships or if they function as tools to advance U.S. geopolitical interests.
The reaction out of the statements that you made about Burkina Faso were several African leaders feeling you are speaking on sovereignty issues that America shouldn't be. And as a result, there are those who see the role of AFRICOM as less of a partner in, the war against, shared threats, as you mentioned, and more of a protector of Western or American economic interests that allows access to Africa's vast mineral resources, and as more of a paternalistic relationship than one of respect amongst peers. What would you respond to that?
I respond that there's others on the globe that do that. There's others on the globe that do that.
Langley's response emphasizes cooperation, but avoids specifics about how AFRICOM balances respect for sovereignty with the strategic imperatives that underpin U.S. military presence. When confronted about criticisms from African leaders who view AFRICOM as paternalistic, protecting Western economic interests over African sovereignty, Langley's response is vague. There are those who see AFRICOM as less of a partner and more of a protector of Western or American economic interests. Langley replies, "There's others on the globe that do that. I'm not even going to bring it up." Langley deflects, refusing to engage the core issue, which is AFRICOM's own role in Africa's resource access and control. This evasion contrasts sharply with the command's stated commitment to respect for sovereignty and equal partnership. Ivana presses on the expanding military and economic influence of China and Russia in Africa.
So you're not concerned about China and Russia expanding their military and economic influence across the continent?
We are concerned about it, yes.
What about it concerns you?
Well, their influence. Their influence may not be looked upon as being a positive influence.
For who? For America or for Africa?
Well, for Africans. Okay.
Langley's statements underscore a key contradiction. While AFRICOM claims to support African stability, its preoccupation with countering other powers often fuels increased militarization, arguably heightening tensions on the continent. Moreover, Langley's refusal to clearly define whose interests are paramount, America's or Africa's, suggests AFRICOM's mission is deeply entangled with U.S. geopolitical competition rather than purely African security. The interview touches on Somalia's ongoing instability, Sudan's violent conflict, and AFRICOM's role in managing these crises.
There's a change of our approach. We're going to help you where we can. We do have different priorities, but we're still here for you. We still want you to lead it because you understand your consequences better than anyone.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the perfect time to know why it was not okay for Burkina Faso to lead, since they know their consequences better than anyone.
All right, so it's about countries perhaps taking up their own autonomy. General, let's talk about countries taking on their own autonomy. You are on African soil, not for the first time, but this would be a good moment to ask about one of the countries that has taken its own autonomy, and that's Burkina Faso. Your remarks recently at the Senate seem to suggest that he's diverting, General Traore, is diverting its 4 billion gold reserves to sustain his military rule rather than for public welfare. What did you mean by that statement?
Let me speak to Burkina Faso's sovereignty. They maintain their sovereignty. They make their decisions how they use their resources. They make their decisions who their resources go to for military support. That's their sovereign right. But my cautionary tale was just from a military perspective. That was a Senate Armed Services Committee asking me a direct question.
Kenya's recent designation as a non-NATO ally is another focal point. While this status bolsters Kenya's defense capabilities, it also deepens military ties with the U.S., potentially complicating Kenya's independent foreign policy and regional relations. Langley frames this as mutual benefit, but AFRICOM's overall approach reflects a pattern of deepening American military presence in Africa under the guise of partnership. General Langley's interview highlights the contradictions within AFRICOM's mission. The command proclaims partnership and respect for sovereignty, yet its actions and rhetoric reflect a stronger focus on protecting U.S. interests, countering rival powers, and maintaining influence over African military affairs. This dual role complicates AFRICOM's legitimacy as a partner. As Langley himself struggles to clearly distinguish African and American interests, the question remains, can AFRICOM ever truly align its practice with its stated goals? In this interview, the blurred lines between partnership, paternalism, and power projection become unmistakably clear.